Welcome everybody. Ted, I'm going to throw over to you to do a quick intro and talk about your superpower about getting local and people excited about EB, if that's okay.
Sure. So happy to be here. So my name is Ted Meulenkamp. I am the Global Employer Branding Lead at Mondelez International. If you don't know who we are, that is actually one of our problems. You do know our brands, Cadbury, Oreo, Milka, Toblerone, Lou. I mean, there's, I think, over 150 brands that we have, your childhood favorites, I would say. So my superpower, well, we have many, obviously, but one of them is getting, I would say, local employer branding teams excited about the stuff that we're doing. Right. So very often it's, I'm in a global COE role. I get excited about my stuff, obviously, but you need to get the local teams because that's where the actual employer branding is happening. Right. So I think part of it, because of personality, I always have new ideas. I drive myself crazy and I drive some of my coworkers crazy that I'm always inventing new stuff. But that as well helps them to understand that try things, do things, get new things on the road. The other piece is that we give them free tools, right? Is that a superpower? I don't know, but I make sure that they have the tools to do their job. So there's no chargeback. I get them, the bigger tools out there that we all need to do the job. And then it's supporting them. So it's making sure that whenever they have a question, I'm always positive. I'm always responding. We're always willing to help, even though it's, hey, I can't get this photo to work in our branding tool. Right, okay, you should be able to do that. I'll help you out. Right? So I think that's where people see that, wow, this is what we're doing. This is how we get employer branding done. Okay, superpower. I'll leave that for others to decide. But
Awesome, thank you so much, Ted. Caro, quick intro, please. And your superpower, which I love, is your building a supercharged EB team.
Yeah, so lovely to meet everybody. My name is Caro Guillea. I am heading the global telemarketing and engagement team at HelloFresh. I joined the company at the beginning of the year, so just over 6 months with them, and it's been a fantastic road so far. As Elle mentioned, my superpower is to build a super-powered employer brand team, and that is because at HelloFresh at the moment we're in a transformation. We've moved from having 360 recruiters into having specialized roles within the talent acquisition function. So if you think about it, we have a coordinator, or as we like to call them, a talent specialist, a candidate specialist, sorry. We have our sourcers, which we actually like to call talent engagement team, and we have our recruiters or our talent acquisition partners. In any other company that I've seen them so far, you normally have a coordinator who wants to be a sourcer and a sourcer who wants to be a recruiter. But we've done it a little bit different. What that means is that each of the paths for our teams have their own career path. For the team that I lead, which is both telemarketing and talent engagement, we're supercharging them by giving them the tools and the development and upskilling them into all things top funnel, so all things attraction, so that in the future they will be able to assess and bring solutions for their talent acquisition teams or their hiring needs for all top funnel actions, from how do we get people attracted and aware about HelloFresh, all the way into how we actually get them into the positions.
Amazing, thank you, Caro. Starting to see trends here with Ted and yourself around enablement and tools and all of that good stuff already. So I'm going to head over to David now, actually, and I'm going to let you intro your superpower. Although, to be honest, I almost thought I might go over to Chelsea's cat for the superpower, but then I thought, no, I'll just stick with David and your superpower of EB at an unknown brand.
Yeah, So my name's David Phillips. I'm Recruitment Marketing Director at a company called CGI. I'm not sure how many people know about CGI in this audience. So that kind of explains why the superpower is about employer branding at an unknown brand. We're an IT consultancy. In Canada, we're huge. In the UK, not so, but still considerable, considerable employer. But we sit behind the scenes on a lot of stuff as an IT consultancy. So we don't really have that sort of consumer facing brand. I also went for a company called Capita before, which is very known in the UK, huge as well, and a similar superpower needed there because they also sit behind the scenes. Where it's a challenge, and it is, I can't say it's easy, trying to promote a brand that's not known every day and trying to make people want to work for a company for that brand. What I really enjoy about the role is the sort of unlocking of it and introducing it to people. You know, my role and working with the recruiters, we sit at the front line of introducing that brand to a lot of people, unless they're clients, obviously. And it's been really exciting over the course of my career, which is now 13 years, to be able to take the more cultural aspects, the more not exciting parts, but what it really is like to be part of that brand and what we're achieving, and take that to market, and the impacts that we have that aren't necessarily known about. So it's kind of, I'll touch on it more as we discuss, but it's that's sort of a big part of employer branding at an unknown brand.
Amazing. Thank you so much, David. And if you don't know CGI, you soon will. Over to Ashten. I love your superpower, very, very dear to my heart, which is embedding cultural ethos in brand identity. Talk to us, Ashten.
Sure. So I'm Ashten, currently global go-to-market lead at Dropbox. And yes, my superpower is embedding cultural ethos into brand identities. I feel like too often we see brands where there's an EVP or some sort of brand for talent acquisition, but then their diversity manifesto or diversity proposition is always adjacent. I just feel like more and more now we can really begin to start embedding those cultural aspects, that diversity, that inclusion into the actual brand identity and weave it into the entire experience. So I'm also all about stopping the design of objects and moving into designing experiences for all aspects of employer brand. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, guys. And you'll see, we'll be touching on all of these points as we sort of go through the journey today. But I want to sort of move last but certainly not least is lovely Alex, who probably has forgotten his superpower because he's been traveling all over the place and busy meeting with people in the EB world. But Alex, please do a quick intro to those folk, if there's any folk in this side of the world who don't know who you are.
There might be. I'm just trying to catch up to Ashten and her traveling, minus the DJing. But Alex here, I am the Monica to Elle's Dex. We've been doing this little road show here. I think this is the third session we've had. But I head up the global employer branding function at GoDaddy. I'm also one of the founding leaders here with the Employer Brandwagon, sit on the TBA committee, Talent Brand Alliance, and my superpower is just bringing together teammates to become advocates for your brand. Something I love doing. I love, we use this line a lot, and Ashten knows this being my former teammate at GoDaddy. We like to join forces. It's a crucial value for any of my teammates. And also we're hiring too. So if there's anyone on this call who's interested in joining us remotely in EMEA, that's a shameless plug there, but we were looking for someone to join forces, but that's my superpower.
Amazing. You can have that plug, Alex. Thank you, guys. So I'm going to jump into a quick sort of evolution of employer branding. And I would say probably my superpower, and I think I've always held on to that, is making the complex simple. And that is not to say that employer branding is complex, but actually there's a huge amount of facets to what it looks like. But, taking, everything we've talked about a bit, I think, my superpower is like honing in and saying, okay, well, what's at the heart of employer branding? What is it we're really trying to do? So with that, I'm going to going to share this deck with you super quickly because we're not here to really hear from me, as I said, with this team. So let's look at the, where has employer branding sort of come from? If we go back to the 1990s, for those that you remember, and unfortunately I do, showing my years, but it's very much about, have a job, early general news, put in a newspaper. We have a job. Do you need a job? Simple as that. So call it the shouter. I think everybody here is going to be familiar with this one, the sort of, as we, 2007, smartphone, evolution of smartphones and social media, really creating a world of show-offs, right? And it was this desire, if you can imagine it pre-pandemic now, of free ping pong tables, free booze, city office, cool offices, all this stuff. And it was just like, that's what employer branding was, the edge on how cool we are, and especially with, and I'm ex-LinkedIn, but the advent of so many tech companies competing for this new talent, it really, really was kind of that show-off piece. And then we hit the 2020s, and even pre-pandemic, employer brand came in this evolution, I call it like this artistry, and it's creating a connection. Right? How do we create an emotional connection? It's not just about that desire, but understanding and, the hearts and the mind. But that really is the science versus the art. And it has to be data-driven. To prove the value of employer branding, it always has to be data-driven in what we're doing. So using some of this data, it's now 2021, so last year's Edelman Trust Barometer just shows the massive shift in their research, saying that pre-pandemic customers and clients were super important to a company's long-term success. Whereas the thing we've all known for a while, right, guys, is that actually people are saying and understanding now that shift is to employees, because you've got nothing without happy, engaged, productive employees and the talent you need. The pandemic, though, did raise the stakes in what that looks like in believing that connectivity with their employers. And for me, the two important pieces of data here was that around 59% want to work for a company that's better fit with their values. So Ashten, a nod to what you were saying here. But something I think we can all relate to as well is that 31% only 37% want better compensation or careers advancement. So there's been a huge shift when we start looking at that. And then again, 61% of their data set, so they choose to leave. If we think about the full cycle of employer branding for attraction, hiring and retention, they choose to leave, avoid or consider employers based on their values and beliefs. And for me, that's really led to where we are now, this sort of 360 view of employer branding. So I see employer branding as a bit by paint by numbers, and bear with me here. You need to give people a framework when they're helping you. And Alex, you talk about advocacy, and we're all aware of advocacy. And you need to give people a framework. We know people are going to be talking about you anyway, but what does that, what do they talk about when they talk about diversity being weaved to everything, or the value proposition, whatever that is? And this is why I liken it to paint by numbers, because if you give them a picture and a framework, everybody can still have their different perspective. And I love this image here because it's just, it's one image, but it still has, even with people's different viewpoints and where they, put their personal slants on it, you can still see it's the same picture, right? So I think, the key things about how you build a sustainable employer brand is the culture and values, and how you communicate that with both your internal and external talent. Stop shouting. Nobody wants to hear that. We're not in the 1990s anymore. So how do you tell a story and more softly and engage? And Alex, and as everybody knows, advocacy is really a test in change management. It's a tools piece. And honestly, guys, this is not a setup. But it is, you have to give people the tools to, help build the brand and the advocacy. And ultimately, we're talking to not just candidates. I call them the 4 C's, which is your customers, your candidate, your client, and your colleague, because you never know in this world we're living now, the evolution of work, whether people are being a gig economy, when they're going to be a customer, if you're B2C versus B2B, are they a client or a customer? So it's about talking to people no matter which of the 4 C's they are as well. And that kind of really leads us to the EB360 piece, which is thinking, okay, how do you get buy-in from the business? And if you're starting to build a sustainable brand, how does employer brand practitioner sit as the custodian of all of that to connect and unite and deliver on an organizational experience? So leadership ultimately care about company strategy, their vision, their mission, how they're going to get there. Traditionally, employer brand would really sit in this TA space here. And it's the EVP. Oh, excuse me. It's the EVP here, and EVP is not the silver bullet. And I think you've all said that. I think Ashten, you might have changed that, or Caro. It's the fact that yes, that's important, but it's not the be-all and the end-all. But we also know that you can get them in with a great EVP, and then we've talked about candidate experience for a while. Then after a while, you deliver a good candidate experience. It sort of sits in the HR space around onboarding. And then we've heard more and more about employee experience, and that is the buzzword of now is saying, great, and we can hire more people. What about the people we've got? Because if we get employee experience right, the marketing also massively care. And we've seen a real shift in employer branding being under the KPIs of CMOs now, for example, because they understand that the employee experience is correct. Then the customer experience is going to be positive, hence then delivering back on the company strategy. I can spend half an hour on this slide. That's not for today, but that's why we call Employer Brand 360 is how do employer brand practitioners sit across all these experiences, so the whole entire life cycle of the talent journey, and work with organizations to really deliver that. And then we have that piece saying, lovely theory, thanks very much, Elle, but what does it look like in practice? And this is where we have the amazing panel. So with that, I'm going to go to question number 1, which is, if employer brand is a team sport, having looked at that EB360 diagram, and it's about everybody in there, who are your most valuable players? Going out to you guys.
Oh, wow. If I can jump in.
Sure.
It's a team sport. You already said it. It's a team sport, right? So I think that, like in all teams, everybody is valuable, but you need to understand their strength. And that means that you need to understand where they then can play. So some people are absolutely amazing in creating content. And it can be writing skills, right? So they write really good stories, or they're really good at graphics, or other people are great at motivating the internal organization, so getting the ambassadors going. Others are great with numbers and do paid media. So I think that it's hard to say that, who's the most valuable player. I think it's that combination of all people together being put in the right spot that makes an awesome team. You can extend that actually to, hey, the team is bigger, right? So the team is, you work with your communications team, you work with your culture team, you work with marketing, etc. So they as well have a role to play, right? So I'm a big fan of putting people in the right place so that they really do what they love, what they're passionate about. And then that's where their strength is.
Good answer.
Yeah, I love that. As I say, it's a bit of a trick question, isn't it? Because you're absolutely
I mean,
right.
It's a bit of a tricky one, yeah.
It's an interesting one, and I think Ted, you kind of alluded to it as well, sort of how I view it. And I don't know whether this answer's arrogant or narcissistic, but I do think us in our roles as employer branding leaders are critical on that team to bringing everything together in a corporate structure, which I've worked in where it's kind of been undeveloped before. Going back to your model, Elle, with the Employer Brand 360, it's always sort of me that's sat at the center, whether I wanted to or not, to try and bring the different teams, recruitment, global marketing, local marketing teams, members of the business together to try and make this work. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel a bit arrogant saying it's me, but I totally buy into it. It is a team sport, and we need all of those people, all of those come into it to make it work. But I do think we're critical to sort of being the key to all of that.
Now, I think I might have a bit of a different answer in that I look at the company's employees as the most valuable players. We can create the best branding, the best stories, the best whatever. But if the brand is too aspirational, if it's too lofty, too fluffy, it's not the reality that the employees are living, and we're not utilizing those data sets, which are those employees, then you just have a brand that no one's bought into, and it just doesn't work out across the board. So I really think, making sure that you are utilizing your data, which is your employees, and really leaning into that, that makes them truly the most valuable players in the whole ecosystem of 360 employer brand.
Well, are you actually saying that companies are doing that? They're not valuing their employees and using them?
She totally is.
I mean,
Like that. That's a hot take then.
I think, honestly, Ashton, I think you're quite right. I think it's the golden gong there, right? And I think everything, both what David and Ted, absolutely right from an employer brand perspective. And David, you're not, by the way, you're totally not being egotistical by saying we are the conductors. I see the role as the conductor of the orchestra, but then exactly, Ashton, you're right. What our job is to ensure that those different experiences through the talent life cycle of the people there are great. Otherwise, we've got nothing. And is that you saw the model at the heart of it. I kind of skipped that on purpose for today, but it was culture, not purpose is at the heart, but culture. And the culture is the people. That's saying, I didn't leave a company, I left a manager is one side of it. The other side is that I stayed at a company, not because of the company, because of the people.
I think employer branding is also all about being a team sport, right? You cannot really achieve your goals as a good employer brand manager if you make enemies out of your stakeholders, right? If you don't get along with your marketing team, then things might not really play out to your benefit. Same with the brand team or with your talent acquisition team, with your people stakeholders. So if there's one thing that I've learned throughout my entire career is to be as open as possible to building as many partnerships and as many relationships as possible, because they would really benefit you to get a seat at the table that you need to be at.
Agreed. Yeah, and you're all mentioning. I don't want to dive too much into too many details, because this is exactly what I'm talking about tomorrow at Breakfast. So. I'm gonna try to stay as as neutral as possible. But I mean, all good points. I mean, I think first with David that you should value yourself as being the conductor, right? You're crucial. But then also knowing enough where, hey, you kind of got to get out of your own way. You are important, but you're important to bring everyone together, to acknowledge the employees, and then also as Carolina was saying, is that you can't make enemies. I think we see too much in a space where there is a back and forth. I think it's gotten better now where people do respect what we bring to the table, but it's getting that seat at the table and then staying there versus being there once, being kicked off, marketing or branding jumping in, or comms taking over. You got to forge those partnerships, and then I think that's when the magic can happen. That's when you see these phenomenal employer brands who've gone and done amazing things. It's because they are using everyone that is part of the team versus just doing, a lot of makeshift stuff on Canva where they're limited with what they have there, just either as a team of one or just their own individual EB team that just is a bit siloed.
Yeah, that's that's a great segue, Alex. And I think it's having a seat at the table, super important. Engagement with stakeholders, super important, because that also then links back to the Ashton and I have talked about this event. Actually, you can have the best programs in place, but if it's not a lived reality, and this goes back to the employee experience piece, I said there's been a shift of, for me, the candidate experience is like, yes, nurture and all that great stuff, but it's all been about the promise, the promise, the promise. Well, promises can be empty, right? Which is why I think there has been this massive shift in the employee experience, because that's reality. Because if you get that wrong, then the whole world's going to know. So I think as stakeholders and bringing these, marketing, HR, comms, all these people to the table, it's like, you can say what you like, but my role is to make sure that everything we do is embedded in bringing the people's experience, making it positive, and then communicating that out to the market. So that's, as I said, perfect segue, Alex, to my next question was, and this is going to be a hard question. I love it when it gets a bit curly then, based on everything we've just talked about. If you could only hire one person into your EB team, because you're saying, Alex, some of the people that we're going to be sharing this with and talk to only have an EB team, a person of 1 or 2 or 3. So if you could only hire, let's say, one person, one team member, who would they be and what would they do?
So if I may jump here and share my 2 cents, I think hands down for me would be a content creator. I think as a team of 1, I've been a team of 1, I've been in bigger teams and I've led bigger teams as well. And as a team of 1, I found that it's really valuable to have somebody who is helping you by being the creative arm, right, of your employer brand. Somebody who's helping you deliver some quick wins that are hopefully going to be very visible and make your internal stakeholders happy, and become and also give you some time back so that you can focus on what you want to do, right? Build your strategy, build your employer brand. So hands down, a content creator.
I'd agree, Carolina. I'm a team of 1 as well, and the content's so important. It's the way that we take that story to market, and I really value. At the moment, we use a lot of agencies, and there's some tools that we use, and they're so important. The Martech being one of them is hugely important to that content creation. But I also think, digital is also important. I work directly with the recruitment team a lot, which I've alluded to. It's exposure of our employer brand, which is important, and it goes back to that superhero power of promoting an unknown brand. We have to be tactical, and a huge part of my strategy around that, and making sure that our story and the roles we're recruiting for are out there with audiences, and again, not shouting, but stealth mode. It's growing that awareness. It's all, digital, pay-per-click is hugely important to that as well. So I think I'm going to go for 2 people, a content creator and a digital person, I'm afraid.
Luckily, this is the new world, and you can have them doing. You can do a job share, or you can do half.
Yeah.
Luckily, we can do that.
So I agree. I'd agree with content, right? Because so I'm a team of 2. Most of the time, it has been a team of 1, right? So, but I think it's around building the story. So you can build all the playbooks and all the guides and your EVP, but you need somebody who's really good at finding the stories. That's a very hard part, and then creating them, right? For the creation, you could even say, I'll work with an agency, but it's finding those stories and translating your EVP into really, in good human stories. Not shouting, like we said, but hey, what's the subtle message that we have, right? So there's an indirect message. It doesn't, you cannot say we're such a diverse company, right? I've seen company do that, right? So, but it's a bit like, wow, hey, I can show you what we have and all the programs that we do. Up to you to decide whether we are a diverse company, because it depends as well who you are, right? So I'd stick with content. If I can do a second one, because we're introducing at Mondelez actually a sort of gig working, so I can have somebody for 4 hours a week. It would be more around digital for sure.
Yeah, because
and I'm going to try.
Go, Ashten, please go.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm going to try not to dig too deeply into it, because also I'm talking about this a bit tomorrow, but I think the one person that I would hire would be more of a marketing wizard that's not afraid to live dangerously. I think that in the past couple of years, we've seen marketing change drastically. Between the technology changing, the trends changing, and even the way that we're able to even use information to target different audiences and things like that. So I would definitely want someone that's not afraid to test learn, fail, go big or go home, and really figure out what are those key ways and key touch points that are really going to convert people from just coming to the career site and looking around to actually applying for those roles.
So you're looking for the shiny purple unicorn?
Absolutely, 100%.
I think we all are, though. I would say so. I'm going through this process at the moment, but I think we all pretty much agree. Okay, we'd want like one content person, one digital/recruitment marketing person. But at the moment, I'm looking for a third person to join, and I want that person to pretty much take bits and pieces of all that. But I think combine that along with what Ashten mentioned, where they you don't just want them to be like a paper pusher. I mean, that's an old line. It's clearly not paper pushing anymore, right? It's all digital, but if they're just going to come in and just kind of keep everything going as the status quo, does that make your brand better, your team better? It doesn't. I'm looking for someone to join that I can I'm going to hire for potential where I know they can make us better. Like I can help them get better, but there's a certain skill that they bring to the table with the mix of the content and the digital/recruitment marketing that is going to take our brand to a whole different level and get us out there to do things that we haven't been able to do. But I think we're all pretty much aligned with where we're headed.
Yeah, having sort of listened to you guys, and again, I think what we know has shifted is that I think you just said it, Alex, just now. Sorry, guys, if I haven't already mentioned this, I am slightly jet lagged. Only got in yesterday, but I think you just said it, Alex, about doing bits of things, is that EB traditionally, employer branding, and when I say not just a person, but what we're doing has also always been a bitser role, like you do a bit of this, that, and kind of trying to do everything all together. But what I'm loving hearing at the moment is actually, instead, you said like somebody who can have that view, but I think we've now got more focus of what it is we need to do. So empowering employees, creating the content, getting it out there. Right. And that for me has been we wouldn't have said that. None of you guys would have said that 5 years ago, even. I don't reckon. You would still be looking for that bits of person who could do everything, that kind of, like get their hands dirty, do all of this. And so I'm loving hearing, this more focus, and it aligns to what we're saying about the empowering the people, telling the stories, getting it out there. And because I think organizations have really, not us, nobody listening to this, but organization more broadly, our stakeholders, are really getting the fact that that's what's important, the real lived experience, and getting those stories out there. Which again is, and you'd think we rehearsed this, an amazing segue into my next question, which is, as we talk about the evolution of employer branding, what has been the biggest shift in employer branding over the last few years, in your opinion? So what's been the fundamental sort of biggest shift that we've seen? And I expect there'll be some commonalities, but I'd be interested to see from your different areas as well what some of those unique shifts are.
Yeah, I can take that one. So I think the biggest shift for me, to be honest, is the increased buy-in from leadership, and that's across a range of sectors and industries. It's I think leadership is central to the employer experience, and it filters, it's what trickles down, and I think it's the essence of that employer brand manifesting. That's just my personal opinion from my experiences of the organizations that I've worked for, and I think their understanding now of how important a solid foundation for the company to be built on, and the culture has been critical. But then their understanding of working that outwards and sort of promoting it has been the next step. And I really think, I do think they've joined the dots. I'm lucky at CGI, we've got this really solid foundation. It's a 47-year-old company who knows itself very well. And I was blessed when I joined to have that and to be able to take that to market, because I think sometimes with employer brands, you're starting from scratch. So that sometimes that's it's been in the past, that's a bit hard to do category for some leadership teams, but we had it there ready and waiting. And they've really, I think post-pandemic as well, the value of this is come into its own. We've seen the market shift and the way in which people work, the sort of the style of work, the contracts we can offer, the way, you know, what candidates' expectations are, and we have to respond to those. And I think, you know, like I said, leadership are getting that now. You know, and I go back to you know, I've been in this game for 13 years, and my role at Capita evolved from a you know, marketing role that was quite B2B, but then I moved into the internal resourcing team to help support them. And I remember saying to my boss at the time, I don't think I'll get this job anywhere else, to be honest. I think this is unique. And, you know, lo and behold, 10, 12 years later, there's loads of employer brand roles out there now. So I think, you know, it's that shift is evident.
So if you can jump in, if you want. So one of the biggest evolutions I've seen, and that might be because of the companies I've worked at, right, is that previously the employer brand EVP was purely externally focused at a lot of companies, right? It was a talent attraction thing that was driven there. You know, my role would report into TA, which very often it still does. And I think what we've seen is that companies start realizing that it's about the people you already have, right? So how can you start using your EVP as well internally? Or better said, how do you use your culture and the strong things that you see about working at a certain location, and how do you turn it into an external promotion? Instead of, we're starting from scratch, these are our EVP pillars, and let's bring it externally, right? So I think that internal piece is, at least from what I've seen, is much more important, and the way it should be. And to be honest, even up to date, I'm still working hard to get our EVP embedded internally in moments that matter, instead of just, you know, I'll do all the fun stuff and the posters and the blog posts and the videos. It's how do you make people feel, right? That is important. But yeah, so for me, that internal piece and having that really established so that it's one experience for candidates and employees, that's the most important thing I've seen.
I love that. Sorry.
Elle, Ted, I like where you're coming from with that. Do you feel that a lot of EVPs are like really disengaged from the internal process and taking into account the people who are there already? Because maybe that EV team is like just siloed and they're not working hand in hand with the internal comms team or whichever group has come up with those values?
So I think that a lot of EVPs are being developed, you know, through an agency, and they do all the interviews, and they do look at your engagement scores. They look at, you know, what are the people that you need to hire. They do the external research, etc., etc. But then very often, it's more that now we are gonna create like the you know, we're gonna use tools, and we have the templates. And the stories are going to go out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok these days, etc. But we're sort of forgetting that towards your own employees, you as well need to keep telling the story about why it's great to work here. Right? Mm-hmm. Don't take it for granted. They're here. They've been here for 2 years, 3 years. They kind of know what's good. You know, why we're a great company. You need to repeat those stories about people that make, you know, amazing career moves, or all the work that we do in diversity and inclusion, all the work that we do in sustainability, but, you know, put a human face to that. So who are these people working around that? So we're working closely with internal comms. We're not there yet, and again, my experience is that is a hard part, and I've worked at very large companies. That might be actually the issue, that it's much more siloed.
I think that's so true. I just the comment about the sometimes EVP pillars, when you develop them, you know, separately to what the company actually stands for and its values, they can kind of end up being sort of a bit disjointed. And I think you really need to look. That's why I was saying about our history and sort of how established we are. We've got this constitution at CGI. We've had it for a lot of years, and I remember looking at, you know, when we're developing MVP, kind of got it there. We know who we are. We've got those values, and it's an outworking of those and how it makes our people feel and the authenticity of them. Because I think one of our strengths, and this is the way it should be, is the fact that people buy into your company values and should be able to reel them off, quite easily, which is the case for CGI. That's, my view.
I think there's one additional element that I would like to add. I love the elements that both of you have shared so far, but also it's about the shift from really loving my brand in a very cosmetic way, right, and wanting to share that story with everybody, and switching that message into one that is putting the audience in the center, but in a very meaningful way, right? And applying design thinking and experience design methodologies to really make sure that the whole people experience is embedded within your then employer branding messages as well, right? I don't think in the past we had such a laser focus on making sure that the experience was there, and I really appreciate that switch.
I love what you said. Was that you, Ashten?
Oh, I was just going to say pretty much everyone said everything that I was thinking. It's just been this shift from look how cool we are to, creating a brand that makes people think and feel and do things. So yeah, I think it's been a wonderful shift that actually allows us to be true, it's what I'm looking for, protectors of a brand that truly makes people feel and truly brings out the ethos and the pathos in individuals to actually get them to connect with your workplace and your culture, and especially in this remote and hybrid world that we're in.
Yeah, spot on. So I love the fact that we say one thing, you know what, I love this remote world. Very hard when you're doing a panel event to have a truly interactive panel event because we're so conscious of everyone speaking. But I love all of this. And I just wanted to say, Ted, I'm so super excited because I've just spent a while. I very rarely mention the MarTech when we're doing this, by the way, but I'm just going to say this in this instance because the team and I have just been putting together this whole, I'm working with a lot of tech partners, things like that, on what, how we can help them help their sort of tech stacks be more effective. And it's exactly that. One of the things we're saying is the heart, technology is great. And, the biggest shift for me has been in the tech stacks, that EB can use and utilize to help. We talked about the tools right at the beginning, but for me, it's coming back again. AES content, but it's come back again to the people. The technology is amazing. And we spent a while and we just put this deck together. It's all around the moments that matter. And that's where I got excited, Ted. I don't know if you realize you actually said moments that matter. And literally mapping out the entire talent journey from completely unaware to retention and advocacy and talking about what people care about. We've forgotten, especially in a remote world, as you've just said, Ashten, things about, work anniversaries and, why I should join you, about the promotions, internal mobility, and all of that stuff. But but taking the naming convention out, it's exactly that, and that's what we called it: the moments that matter for people, reminding them to be connected and why they love working somewhere. I think is so important, and at all stages. Helping people feel connected and emotionally connected with fellow humans right now.
Yeah. So what we're doing in that aspect is, if you look at a lot of EVPs, it's about, we are going to offer you this, right? You're going to find this. This is what we offer. And we're making sort of I think a subtle change where we say, with all these moments that matters, this is the feeling that I want to give people. So, and that externally it can be around, this is the perception I want people to have about us. Instead of saying, this is what we're going to give you. Now, I want you to feel that, hey, I have, great opportunities for a career at Mondelez because there are international blah, blah, blah here. And then you go with, here are the points of proof, right? So we're making that switch to, this is what I want people to feel when they see our content, when they listen to us, when they hear our employees talking. And I think for me, that's sort of and it was mentioned, design thinking, it's put the end user at the center. This is where I want you to be. This is what I want you to think and feel.
Yeah, spot on. And again, I have a final question to bring us home. We've got kind of 10 minutes left, and supernatural, so I think to fit this in here is that based on everything I know what I think the answer is to this, but based on everything we've talked about, you know, I'd like to open up the last question to sort of saying, you know, in your employer brand's opinion, in any opinion, is really why now more than ever? And again, forget about 10 years ago, post GFC. But why now are we in such a talent-driven market?
You know, I truly believe that we're in this talent-driven market right now because of access to information and a lot of changes in cultural norms. I think right now, more than ever, people have access to a wealth of information when it comes to companies, different roles that are out there, different types of jobs they can even have for themselves, entrepreneurship, the gig economy, things like that. And then also changes in cultural norms where people are now talking about their salaries, their income. They're talking about the benefits at the different companies. They're able to share that information with each other. So people are more informed now than ever when it comes to job seeking, if they even want to come into the workforce, and or if they want to remain, independent, work for themselves, things like that. So I think it's really on a lot of companies to lean into transparency and providing that information that people are looking for in order to make those right decisions about their careers.
Oh, good point. Do you also think, Ashten, that it's, because I like where you're headed, and I think outside of that, like you're seeing more and more where it's okay to be a little more personal on LinkedIn. So instead of, people would otherwise have taken off time to, make just life decisions or big career moves and not share that with the world. But now, like, let's say if you post something, like you posted something really good the other day about, hey, I want to be exactly who I want to be when I present at RecFest. And people talk about something the same vein when they're going to a different place and say, hey, I want time away from this place to go here because I want to focus on A, B, C, and D. And I feel that, they're choosing that on their own terms versus waiting for companies to make that decision for them. But I just think like sharing salaries, sharing their personal stories, I think that's going a long way. But no, I don't want to take too much away from the panel, but I just wanted to chime in on that.
You are our panel, Alex. You're never taking away.
I think it's and I'm going to barge in again. I think it's there's more. I totally agree with all the comments, right? I think there's much more transversable skills these days. If you think about and IT is just one thing, right? It used to be like the big IT companies would need those skills, right? Right now at Mondelez, we're hiring tons of e-commerce people. You go like, you're selling cookies. Well, we're selling cookies at like all the, online. You can localize and personalize your Toblerone bars with your name. It's a whole different world out there. It's our fastest growing segment. So we need these people, and what we run into is obviously people don't think about us when they think about their career in e-commerce. I'm not even talking about data scientists or cybersecurity, which are needed by everyone everywhere. But I think there are so many opportunities with gig working and etc. that it's combined that with the fact that we don't take shit anymore. Right, so let's face it, workload is too high. I don't like what I'm getting paid. There's enough opportunities. Bye, thank you. I'm in charge of my life. And I'm in charge of who I am. I don't feel comfortable here anymore with my career, with the culture, with the colleagues. Bye, I'm gone. People, they are not afraid to take the decision anymore. Right, so yeah. I've seen people even, hey, I'm leaving the job. And in 2 months, I'm sure I'm going to have something else. You go, like, whoa, 10 years ago, you would never do that. Right, so,
agree.
I agree completely. In a nutshell, I think candidates have realized their value. and they are demonstrating that to potential employers. And it's the way that I think it's been a huge tip in the balance. And again, post-pandemic, I think we really have sort of realized that our lifestyles, aspirations, we want to align it to an employer that works for us, rather than being desperate for the job because we need it so badly. And I think that again comes back to why employer branding is so important, and why we have to demonstrate those values and who we are, because I think it's really important for candidates now to align themselves to companies that share their values and expectations and dreams, and sort of everything that makes an employer.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, did somebody else speak? Did I cut over somebody then?
Nope. I was just saying good points.
Yeah,
Keep going.
I agree. And I was going to kind of wrap this up and take it. Like, I love all of this, and I think I don't know about you guys, maybe it's the jet lag, but I feel quite emotional kind of, ending the session with your comments, like Ted and David, and everything I've heard from you guys. In essence, I feel like we're living, if we look at the evolution of employer brand and go back a few years ago, it was literally about, how am I going to get that job? Like, how am I going to prove my value from a candidate perspective? So if we go back to why are we in a talent, driven world, or where we are now, it's like, we're no longer limited to big brands, the companies we know. We can work for a two-man band. We can start our own business. We can be consultants, gig economy. We can work for the biggest brand in the world. We can shift from one to the other. Biggest difference is it doesn't matter what your LinkedIn profile looks like anymore. If you've had 10 months, if you've had, expectations have changed. And I think exactly that, people suddenly realizing they've got worth and value. And I love that. So I feel quite emotional, because I think that's an epic place for the world to be, with all of the, can I say, crap that's going on in the world right now. I actually think this is an amazing place for us as a corporate, and I say corporate meaning a professional world, to be in. If as people we can be human and authentic and take the value of who we are to our workplace, then I think maybe EB has potentially done some of its job well over the last few years, exacerbated and contributed by the state of play of the world. But I think this makes where we are now such an amazing function to be in, which probably also explains why there are so many more roles from employer branding and so many people want to join the industry. Because I don't know about you guys, I keep getting a lot of people ping me saying, hey, I want to get into employer brand. How do I do that? They also talk about, I love the storytelling. I love the human aspect. So personally, I think that's an epic place for us to be, right?
I agree. It's much better than what we were before. So what a difference. 2.5 years. Yeah.
Sorry, carry on, Alex. Trying to banter over Zoom doesn't work. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, even though you're like 2 rooms away from me. But no, I think it's a good point. Like, it's good to see that it's a talent-driven market, but then there's a lot of roles for leaders like us on this call, because before, when things are going bad, we were the first ones to be cut loose. But then, I keep, job alerts all the time just to see, hey, what's out there, share that with friends, and kind of, get some insight into what other companies are doing. And the jobs for EB just keep growing, because to me, that shows the value and the respect that we have gained over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, I love that. On that note, I am going to totally let Monica / Alex have the last word and say thank you all, for this session. Super, super appreciate your time. We're going to be sharing it out and following it up. Ashten, Alex, go rock Recfest. Spread the word, good word out there. Ted and David, Caro, thank you so much. We'd love to, probably have you back, deep dive on some of this stuff. But, please go forth and, carry on, doing the good work you guys are doing. This has been amazing and so valuable. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.